everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm back at it with yet another video, and today we're going to take a look at this up-and-coming full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Man, am I excited for this full moon. I think it's actually a wonderful vibe. It's all about aiming high, and we're going to talk why it's so darn positive. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and consider sharing this video, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you're aiming for under this full moon in Sag. Now, this is going to be happening on June 11th, 2025. Depending on your time zone, I'm Central Time, so it's going to be very early in the morning. That'll be taking place around 2:43 a.m. That'll be Central Time, so that's going to be closer to 3:43 on the East Coast, and that's going to be closer to about 12:43 a.m. Pacific. So you might have to adjust your time zones depending on where you are. But boy, oh boy, this is a very fiery lunation. Obviously, we know Sagittarius lunar transits tend to be a little bit more uplifting and positive. And this one's all about truth, adventure, as well as big dreams. So I can't wait to unpack this with you guys. Obviously, I've got lots of goodies. So we're going to talk about what it means for us personally as well as the collective. Got some ritual ideas for you guys, and we're going to break down the aspects. And if you stay tuned to the end of the video, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs and talk about where you're feeling this full moon. All right, so why is it significant, right? So we'll start with the basics. We have a full moon every month. Not all new and full moons are created equal. And if you guys go back and take a look at 6 months ago when we had the new moon in Sagittarius in 2024, this is now that kind of culmination period where it's kind of showing us what's coming to fruition in the Sagittarius area of our chart. Now, a full moon happens every month when we have an opposition between the moon in one sign and the sun in another. And really what this brings up is kind of like a cosmic spotlight where it's illuminating our emotions, our goals, and what's ready to be kind of either released or something that's coming, like I said, to fruition. So this is going to feature the sun in Gemini, making an opposition to the moon in Sagittarius at 20 degrees and about 39 minutes. So if you guys have anything around, let's say 19, 20, or 21 degrees Sagittarius, sun, moon, rising, or a personal planet, maybe even a north or south node, this is going to be pretty prominent for you. Full moons are always about some kind of culmination and clarity. Sometimes it's also about letting go of what no longer serves us. They can sometimes be a little bit more emotionally intense, very intuitive, and obviously full moons are great for rituals and anything revolving around releasing something, maybe celebrating something, or setting bold intentions. Think of it as the universe's way of basically saying, here's what you've been working on, now what's next? So when we think of the themes of Sagittarius, obviously it's a mutable fire sign, so it is known for being flexible, it is known for being bold and adventurous. And this one is full, like pure fire. When you guys see some of the aspects, you're gonna see what I'm talking about. And Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So we're going to talk a lot about why it's so significant with the Jupiter ingress, the aspects that are being made to Jupiter's exaltation in the sign of Cancer. And I really feel like Sag moons are about expansion. They're also about freedom and living our most authentic lives. So I think this particular lunation is really going to be lighting up our desire to break free from limitations, maybe explore new horizons and speak our truth with some kind of courage. So whether it's booking a trip or diving into a new area of study or having a heart-to-heart, I think this full moon is really about aiming high and trusting your inner wisdom. Now, it's coming in at 20 degrees. So if you guys follow degree astrology, you know that certain degrees correlate with certain signs. Even though it's in the sign of Sagittarius, 20 degrees is actually connected to Scorpio. So when we think about in degree astrology, 20 degrees for me always kind of marks a turning point. It can represent mastery or culmination. It can also kind of represent some connection to endings and beginnings, things that are very transformative and very powerful. And it's got a lot of authenticity, I think, at this particular degree. So if you felt like you've been on a quest for truth, now the universe is asking you, okay, Now, are you going to share what you have been learning? And I think this is a very soulful, very deep, very passionate degree as it's connected to Scorpio. So I think that when we kind of look at it from that perspective, we know that change is the name of the game with this full moon. We're welcoming that. For some of us, this has been 6 months of really prominent change. For some of us, it's going to hit all at once. Now, we also look at the Sabian symbol, and we always round up because it's 20 degrees and change. We're going to be reading the Sabian symbol for 21 degrees of Sag. And the Sabian symbol for 21 degrees of Sagittarius it's a cute one. This is a child with a dog, a child and a dog with borrowed eyeglasses. So the keyword is examination. The theme is scrutiny. The symbol speaks to the absence of any clear lines of separation between lower or higher life forms or levels of competency, and to the opportunities that the absence of clear division provides for curing and supplementing individual differences. The image of a child and a dog with borrowed eyeglasses alludes to borrowed perspective or an attempt to see things more clearly and experience the world through the eyes of another. Thus, it symbolizes curiosity, role play, and the desire for personal growth and higher knowledge. Ultimately, each person creates his reality through his own unique mode of perception and then acts out of it. At its highest, this represents resourcefulness in using every possible means to find a new opportunity. Watch for failure to see the obvious and lack of objectivity. Today, the accent is on ambition and improving your status in the world. You may find yourself struggling to gain more control over your life. Your greatest advantage lies in obtaining the experience you need to get the position you want. Take one step at a time. Volunteer to take a project on or ask for an apprenticeship where you would like to be. Guard against looking at life through rose-colored glasses or only seeing what you want to see. A biased perspective could cause you to miss something that you should be paying attention to. Stepping stones are role play, pretense, disguise, ambition, seeing things through the eyes of another, perspective, vision, scrutiny, exploration, and examination. Interesting. Obviously, if you guys caught that, the dog and the kid kind of playing dress up. It's a playful image, right? It's about seeing, I think, the world through a fresh and a more curious lens. It can suggest, trying on new perspectives or maybe borrowing wisdom from unexpected places. Like a child's innocence and like a pet's loyalty, it can be talking about the relationship that we have to other people and learning how to see things from their perspective and trying on different kind of frames of mind. And I think the full moon is really encouraging us to approach life with humor, maybe a little bit more openness, asking how we can shift our views to align with our highest truth. And it's a call to stay lighthearted while chasing the big dreams. So for personal and global kind of impacts and effects, something that you're going to want to kind of look at personally is look at your chart. So like I said, if you have anything 19 to 21 degrees of Sagittarius, sun, moon, rising, or personal planet, obviously this is going to be a little bit more impactful for you, as well as 19 to 21 degrees of the mutables. So Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, as well as Pisces, you guys are feeling all of that. If you're not a Sagittarius placement and you have another mutable, you're going to be experiencing an opposition or a square, and everybody will be experiencing a grand mutable cross. So nobody really kind of gets a pass with this one. I think the fire signs are really going to like this. So Aries and Leo placements between 19 and 21 degrees. It's really going to be lighting your guys' chart up in a really beautiful way. So enjoy it. And on a personal level, I think for me, full moon in Sagittarius always is kind of connected to not only sparks for adventure, but it's also about craving freedom, some kind of higher knowledge, some kind of truth that we're realizing. And some of us might feel a little bit more restless under a full moon in Sag because we really want to break out of routines, or maybe we're feeling more inspired to pursue a passion project. Now, this could manifest as a sudden urge to travel or maybe sign up for a course. It can also mean that we're having deep kind of philosophical conversations with other people. And it's a time definitely where truths come to light. So I do expect some epiphanies about, our beliefs or our relationships to kind of come up. And we might be confronting where we've been kind of holding back, and we decide that we want to live more boldly as a result of this full moon. Now, globally is a different story. Sagittarius full moons definitely tend to highlight themes of exploration, but also cultural exchange and truth-telling. So we might see news about international travel that's going to be making headlines, global education initiatives, themes revolving around college, or even legal rulings that might be sparking some kind of debate. And this lunation might be bringing inspiring stories of people pushing boundaries or some kind of collective movement for freedom as well as justice. Sagittarius can be associated with courts and anything revolving around the justice system. However, there are some intense aspects that are going to be playing out. We'll discuss that. So I do expect that there could be some clash over beliefs or philosophies. So we want to stay open to diverse perspectives. Whenever we're talking about mutable squares, we see some kind of challenge revolving around cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, anything in regards to international relations that come up as well. And in particular, Sagittarius is going to have some kind of a tie to planes, travel, and in this case, with the Mercury-Jupiter squares, I think we're going to be seeing homeland security updates, new border laws that are going to be coming up, and I am anticipating some chaos revolving around travel because of some of the squares. So yes, I do think that will be happening sometime in mid-June. Now, this particular full moon is interesting because it really lights up some stuff connected to the United States. It's not exact, but it is in the same sign as the U.S. ascendant. So sometimes big things kind of happen revolving around U.S. news headlines when we have a full moon on our Sagittarius ascendant. It will also be highlighting, because Mercury will be conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, a conjunction to the United States, Venus in the 7th house. Now, in this case, it's actually very good for business. It's very good for finance as well as partnerships and international relations. I feel like it could be positive for bringing more business to the United States. And it is going to be the exact same lunation that we see in President Trump's chart. He was born with the sun in Gemini, moon in Sagittarius. His moon in Sagittarius is conjunct the South Node in the 4th house. So we are going to see not only a really similar lunation as when he was born, but this is going to be conjunct his South Node, which deals with past family matters, things connected to his home, his private life, as well as his family. And it will oppose his Sun and Uranus in the 10th house. This looks like it's going to be fireworks regarding Trump with planets on his North and his South Node, although he was born with some of these aspects, so he can navigate it. I am anticipating with some of the Mars-Uranus squares, there is other things that are kind of going on. Now, we are going to see Mars approaching Trump's ascendant, coming into a square with Uranus and Taurus on his midheaven. These are dangerous aspects. Likely, it looks like there is some kind of security matter that's going to be coming up. It could be pertaining to his home or his family. And it can also mean that, it's kind of triggering similar aspects that we saw around the time of his last assassination in the summer of 2024, the attempt that we saw on his life. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on what's going on with Trump's chart because it's going to get lit up like a Christmas tree. Now, in order to understand what's coming about from this particular full moon, we have to look at what was seeded during the new moon in Sagittarius last year. So I'd like to show that to you guys really quick so you can see what I'm talking about. And when I was looking at it, I was like, it really reminds me of just Sagittarius, the archetype, the archer, in a nutshell. So on December 1st, 2024, we saw a new moon in Sag. It was at a Sagittarius degree. It was at 9. But there were some tricky aspects in the sky, and there were some positive aspects in the sky. And it's kind of mirroring some of the same stuff that we're going to be seeing during this full moon. Well, for starters, I think the big thing that really caught my eye is that it's at 9 degrees. Okay, so that was at a Sagittarius degree. However, it was square Saturn. So we were experiencing like wanting to kind of move forward, but we were getting pulled back, right? So like the archer pulls back to kind of figure out where he's going to shoot, and then he lets it go. So we were having to really think and get clear about some of our goals and some of the direction where we're going with our education, our travel, our belief system, our optimism, to overcome some of those squares to Saturn. Equally, if you look at Mercury, which was kind of baked in to the same sign, Mercury was retrograde, so we were reevaluating and rethinking some of our beliefs or our international relationships maybe. It's at 20 degrees, so this is the same degree where we're going to be having the full moon. So negotiations, maybe business relationships, international relationships, maybe some travel things that were kind of coming up or were seated in the beginning of December of last year is now playing out in regards to the full moon in Sag. So I find that very fascinating. And with Mercury retrograde, that becoming a full moon, I kind of see it as, we have another shot. Maybe there is this feeling with Mercury retrograde and also Mercury square Neptune that, we were a bit confused. Like we weren't seeing things clearly. We didn't know what to believe. Maybe we felt like the timing was off in one area of our life, or we've had to just really take our time over the last 6 months to really see something come to fruition in the area of Sagittarius in our chart. So kind of cool. And we also have a fire trine. This was a new moon that was in a trine to Mars in Leo. If you guys remember back to the beginning of December of last year, this was right when we were getting ready to see Mars start his retrograde in Leo and then move back into Cancer. And we also see the new moon in a trine to the North Node. So a lot of it was about this kind of fiery passion and belief about ourselves and, who we're becoming and how we could become more brave, more assertive, more creative, focusing on our passion. And so some of the same themes, because we see a grand fire trine in the full moon, as well as that 20 degrees kind of gets kicked up. So I find that very, very interesting. It was also by sign in opposition to Jupiter, which was retrograde. So we saw some mutual reception here between Jupiter and Mercury, both planets kind of debilitated in opposite signs and then in opposition to each other and retrograde. Sagittarius deals with international trade. It deals with importing and exporting. It also deals with anything revolving around education. Sagittarius and Gemini are about higher levels of education on more of like a college level. Gemini is going to be more about kind of like anything up to high school. So now 6 months later, we're seeing the effects of changes in negotiations with tariffs, global trade. We're also seeing the impact of major shifts that are going on with education, Department of Education stuff, things revolving around how we communicate and connect with people. And all of this stuff is kind of definitely kind of spelled out in the full moon. So let me show you the full moon. We'll go to that. All right. So now we're going to look at the aspects revolving around this full moon, because as you guys know, sometimes the new moon will show us what's going to come through the full moon and you'll see similar aspects. That's why I like to show it to you guys. Sometimes not. But in this case, there are quite a few similarities. So we're going to talk about why I think this is positive and also like where there can be some blind spots or some challenges and where there's some room to grow. Probably the first thing that catches my eye about this full moon is that, we've got a mutable grand cross. So we've got planets that are squaring the north and south node on both sides, which from an evolutionary perspective is pretty significant because it's going to bring things up that are going to help us move out of the past and kind of bring in the necessary information, the bright ideas. There's the big conclusions, the big completions that are going to help us move in the direction of our future. And whenever we see a grand cross formation, we need to have 4 placements all roughly around the same degree. So they're within about a 3-degree orb of squaring each other. So those of you guys who are like 19 to 24 degrees of the mutable signs, you're really going to feel this. But truth be told, when we have square the nodes, everybody's going to be feeling some of the chart kind of turn. And I think the mutable signs definitely do squares better because they can manage better under pressure. I think they are more flexible maybe than the fixed signs. They're about wrapping things up rather than starting things. So it really kind of gives a lot of great energy to a full moon, which really represents a lot of those same themes. The mutable grand cross, any which way you slice it though, it is intense. It does bring up a tense 4-way aspect that kind of feels like a cosmic tug of war. And I think with the moon in Sagittarius, the sun in Gemini, the north node in Pisces, the south node in Virgo, this particular combination is all about balancing adaptability and purpose. Now, the mutable signs, like I said, they're flexible, but they can also be a little scattered. So this aspect can really push us to find harmony amid like what can feel like a lot of competing demands in our life. And it's good for tying up loose ends and wrapping things up. Now, the north node in Pisces is really calling us towards intuition. This is also about spirituality, surrender, compassion, versus the south node in Virgo, which is about kind of clinging to overthinking, being a perfectionist, being super critical, dealing with changes in our schedule, our health, our jobs. And the full moon is going to be, like I said, squaring both of these nodal axes. So what it's going to be bringing up for us is, are we stuck in analysis paralysis? That's kind of what I was thinking about with some of the squares, especially the south node in Virgo. Or are we ready to kind of trust what's coming up for us right now? Like, are we listening to our gut? Globally, I could see this like really sparking debates over, ideals versus practicality. And it's going to be urging collective growth, I think, through compassion. Now, whenever we have planets square the nodes, it is about, like I said, getting out of the past, moving into the future. So we might kind of feel like we're at a crossroads where we have to pick a lane and we have to kind of decide which direction we're going in. In order to do that, we need some stuff that's going to be fueling the fire. And so what I like about this is that, similar to the new moon that we saw in Sagittarius, the full moon in Sag is going to be trining Mars in Leo again, and it's also going to be trining Chiron in Aries. So we're going to have a grand fire trine that's going to be set up between the three. Fire, it's passionate, it burns, it needs to have an outlet for something. It needs to be creative, romantic, dynamic, it needs to travel, it needs to learn. So this is a supporting aspect with the trine that's going to be, I think, wonderful, and it can be providing us opportunities to heal. Obviously, Chiron is about healing, but Chiron's also about awareness, and that's a big theme when we're thinking about fire signs, because if we're not aware of what's going on, if we're not aware of our actions, we can burn things down. Sagittarius loves to teach. It also likes to learn, so we could be learning from some of our past healing issues. We could be learning how to heal ourselves. We can be also teaching other people things. And Aries obviously focuses on wounds revolving around identity as well as courage. With the trine to the moon in Sagittarius, it feels to me kind of like a cosmic pep talk that's encouraging us to release fears about being seen and stepping into our own personal power. So with that also trining Mars, it could be great for creatives, performers, romantics, anybody who wants to kind of take center stage. So it's definitely a beautiful time to heal maybe any self-doubt that you have had and kind of embrace your inner fire. And I love that. I think some of the trines to Mars and Leo also is going to be really about being authentic. I think the Mars retrograde in Leo in general was about learning how to be more creative, focusing on passion and taking action. This aspect to me kind of feels like a cosmic bonfire. So it's really igniting our drive to shine, and it's perfect for bold moves, creative projects, standing up for your truth. Just watch for the potential for there to be overconfidence, right? We want to channel the fire into some kind of inspired action. Now, secondly, this is a full moon that's ruled by Jupiter, and the big news by the time that the full moon is rolling around is Jupiter is going to be in Cancer. So technically it's in its exalted position, which means it's like the best of the best. So it really benefits, I think, to have a Sagittarius full moon with Jupiter in such great placement. Jupiter is going to be at 0 degrees. Okay, so this is pretty significant because this is one of the world axis points. Recently, we've had Saturn and Neptune kind of dancing with that 0 degree Aries, and there's been this creative burst of new energy. There's been maybe more optimism. Maybe we've had to be a little bit more courageous and confident in how we're, kind of tackling some of our own personal responsibilities. But Jupiter is now triggering that point because it's at 0 degrees. So it's squaring that point where we've seen retrogrades. We have also seen Saturn and Neptune ingress. So just focusing on just Jupiter's placement, that's pretty prominent. That basically means that there is something going on between the moon and Jupiter that's really big. And if you noticed, Jupiter is in a lunar sign, the moon is in a Jupiterian sign. They're not making an aspect to each other, but they do have mutual reception. So they're saying the same thing. They're basically saying like intuition's going to grow, emotions are going to grow. We have opportunity to create change because obviously Jupiter is 8 signs away from Sagittarius. So if you're like a Sag or a Sag rising, Cancer is your 8th house. And this is about a major transformation of emotions, maybe major changes that are going to be kind of coming up with your home, with your family. This is also going to be a pretty significant transit for growth and abundance when it comes to the home base. So some people are going to be moving house, they're going to be expanding their home, they're going to be relocating. We're going to see people who may have opportunities to refinance their homes. It may mean that there is, it's being spelled out that there's going to be some changes coming in the housing markets. I keep telling people there's going to be a baby boom with Jupiter in Cancer. So there could be a lot of people who are talking about expanding their families, having kids, a lot of like Cancerian things. And Jupiter is going to be in conjunction to Mercury. So what's interesting is like a full moon shows this polarity between the sun and the moon, and it's going to highlight like the differences between the two particular signs. And 180 degrees is a relational aspect. So usually it's not like the friendliest of aspects. It does represent like a Saturn energy where we have to find a way to kind of like, respect one another, see each other's perspectives, but by the same token, like recognize that we're different. So to see Mercury, the ruler of the sun, Jupiter, the ruler of the moon, in conjunction tells me actually polarity can be a good thing. We can actually find a middle ground. And instead of feeling like we have to be one extreme or the other, we can find ways to honor each other's differences while still be able to maintain our own personal beliefs, our own thoughts, and in the sign of Cancer, our own national pride. So you're going to see a lot of people who are going to be like, we love the diversity of our country. It's great. And this, that, and the other. And we want people to come and visit us. And we want to, have, travelers and people who want to come explore our land, come and see the food we have, come and see the culture we have. It's great. And so, to some extent, I think it could also positively, be connected to international relationships. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, especially in the United States chart. It's actually a really great aspect for welcoming more people into the United States and kind of talking about the diversity that we have because of what it's doing in our chart. But you may see some other countries that are doing the same thing. Now, Jupiter being exalted obviously means that it's most powerful. And this is a very nurturing placement. That conjunction to Mercury is like the duo that's going to be blending expansive dreams with emotional communication. So it's very heart-centered. It's definitely going to be encouraging us to speak from the soul and setting intentions that are really rooted in care. And envision a future that feels like home. So this is amazing for journaling, deep conversations, manifesting, some kind of creative expression, trusting our intuition, because I feel like this is going to be the superpower that we're going to have during this full moon. I love to see also the North and the South node ruler, Jupiter and Mercury, in conjunction, because not only do we see the sun and the moon rulership in conjunction, so it's saying even though we have differences, it can actually be good. But we also see that with the nodes. So in a way, even as an astrologer, that's really hard for me to kind of, mentally balance that out, because the grand mutable cross seems to indicate there could be some tension, there's some kind of chaotic turning point. But really, when you look at the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction, it's a good thing. It's a good change that we're going to see that's going to be happening. So I'm wondering if they're going to kind of balance each other out. Anyway, love to see the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction in a nutshell. Not only good intuition, good news, really great for planning trips, right? It can be great for communication, for contracts, for signing leases, buying homes, that kind of stuff. But there is a challenging aspect that we're seeing. There's a couple of challenging aspects, but just one off the bat that I think is probably the most prominent is the fact that we are now coming into what is going to be the third and final Jupiter squares Saturn. So in 2024, we saw in the summer and also right at the end of the year, while Saturn was in Pisces, we saw a square from Jupiter in Gemini. And over the summer, I don't remember which one was retrograde. I think over the summer, Saturn was direct and Jupiter was retrograde. And then I think at the end of the year, Jupiter was retrograde and Saturn was direct, if I remember correctly. So there was kind of like, one kind of had the lead and then the other one, kind of took the lead. And, Saturn has been in superior position the entire time. We have been watching Jupiter try to kind of get away from the grasp of Saturn and try to expand, travel more, learn more, be more positive and optimistic. So it's been difficult because I think we've seen, Jupiter in a fallen sign. We've seen the Jupiter-Saturn square. Maybe we have felt like some of the optimism kind of got squashed a little bit. And this is the last square that we're going to see. And now they're in different signs. So it means the same thing. Jupiter wants to expand, Saturn wants to contract, and that we can't expand too quickly, right? Because we need to be, careful, cautious. We need to kind of be sticking to the plan, or I guess in the sign of Aries, we need to be confident. That's so far, that's how I've kind of interpreted the Saturn and Aries transit. It's like, instead of being fearful, Saturn, Neptune, we have to be confident. And in order to be confident, we also have to believe in ourselves, Saturn, Neptune. We have to see clearly. We have to be sober. We have to be mature. We have to get clear about our dreams. Because Saturn is really dictating and determining in many ways what Jupiter can do, right? So this is that final squeeze where it's like, okay, we're trying to practice moderation. So Jupiter is squaring Saturn. Jupiter is going to square Neptune. And I feel like, this creates tension. We're going to see tension between growth and limitation. Saturn Aries is going to demand, discipline as well as boundaries, and Neptune and Aries can really blur reality with idealism. So the square is challenging us to kind of balance out our big dreams with the practical steps that we need to take for moving forward and have some kind of spiritual clarity. It's about, are you chasing a vision that's grounded? Or are you getting lost in fantasy? And the aspect can really make you build your dreams with intention and realism. So that's the challenging aspect. Jupiter is also starting to come into an in conjunct or a quincunx with Pluto, which I think is also something that's worth mentioning. That is also 8 signs away from Jupiter. So we see a lot of like Jupiter 8 signs away from the moon, Pluto 8 signs away from Jupiter. I look at this and I go, well, an in conjunct or a quincunx is an uncomfortable aspect. It's going to be talking about what is being reworked in terms of power and the future and technology and groups, and whether that's aligning with, where some people want to live. That's going to be influencing what cities they're living in, what communities, what countries they're living in. If they're trying to, with Pluto retrograde, flee, certain countries that are going to be under some kind of like technological, takeover, and anything revolving around invasion of privacy, things kind of connected also to security, as well as maybe even wealth. Pluto and Aquarius could be wealth. So you're going to see a lot of people who are going to be wealthy that are going to be like, I want to go to certain cities because there's more opportunities to build businesses there, or certain countries because there's going to be more opportunities to build businesses there. And so it's possible Pluto retrograde, we're going to see some major like tech, major companies connecting to, where they would hire, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like union members, like stuff like that. Like certain people might be like, oh, they're building a new plant here, so we're moving there because we're going to get, a job there. So it can be also really significant for the housing market. This can be talking about like certain housing markets are breaking down while other ones are actually kind of growing and expanding. You can see that from the Jupiter-Saturn square as well, because a lot of people are reimagining, where they want to live and what their life is going to kind of look like if they were to kind of venture somewhere new. So the other thing that comes up with this is we do see another very positive aspect to Jupiter. We see Jupiter in a sextile with Venus. So we got the 2 benefics, one that's exalted, one it's in its home sign, in a sextile. A sextile is kind of what I call like a lazy aspect. Like it is positive if you go looking for it. And Venus in Taurus, obviously, this is all about sensuality. It's about pleasure. It's about stability, beauty. And it's sextiling Jupiter in Cancer. So it's going to bring in this kind of soft, nurturing, homey vibe. So with this particular sextile, it's going to encourage us to set intentions around self-worth, maybe relationships, finances that might feel grounding. And it's a great time to pamper ourselves and strengthen bonds or manifest abundance with a more heart-centered approach. So think like cozy rituals or like soulful connections that we're having with home and family. Now, while we're on the topic of Venus, Venus is going to be coming out of a square with Pluto. So that is a little bit prickly. Obviously, Venus wants to be comfortable, and it wants to be beautiful, and it wants to be solid. And it does deal with love, money, or values. So with Venus making a square to Pluto, and Pluto is kind of in the superior angle here, it can bring about power struggles or a need to transform how we are approaching our relationships. Maybe it's a call to release some kind of like control and embrace change, even if it feels uncomfortable, which I think the full moon in Sag is going to do anyway. And it's a good time to ask yourself, am I holding on to something out of fear? This full moon is really perfect for letting go of what no longer aligns with your truth. And that change can actually be really beneficial. We see that through the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction. Now, another kind of tricky aspect that we see is during the time of the full moon, Mars in Leo is just getting ready to wrap up his tour, but before he does, he's coming into a square with Uranus in Taurus. This is going to be kind of, it's in the full moon, but it's going to be kind of going on really until about the 15th or the 16th of June. So like that whole period, you're going to see tension between these 2 placements. And I'm really watching Mars very closely, especially now that we have Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. Anything going on with Mars is going to be reverberating off of this conjunction, where we already kind of have some challenges seeing things clearly. So Uranus is kind of like weird and wacky, unpredictable, sudden sparks of, genius, but it can also be something that's very destabilizing, and it can create a lot of shockwaves, especially when it comes to, banks, financial markets, anything like that. Mars is in the sign of lovers, creatives, performers, but it's also dramatic, it's bold, it is a very kind of me first energy in Leo, and it's in hard aspect to Uranus. So, on one hand, this is definitely going to be, I think, with the moon trine Mars, it's amplifying confidence and anything revolving around self-expression. But the square to Uranus and Taurus can spark sudden disruptions and rebellious urges. So it could feel like there is this push to break free from restrictions, but I would say try to avoid impulsiveness. We want to channel this into innovative action instead of conflict. I think this can send some markets like over the top soaring. In some scenarios, I would especially think with like Mars squaring Uranus, I would see that as like, something is actually building up and you see some kind of breakaway. So maybe it's about breaking away from instability. I'm not as optimistic on this one. I feel like maybe if it was just Mars, square Uranus, but trying the moon, I would be like, yeah, things are going to be good. We're going to see certain things that are just going to soar. But when we see Saturn and Jupiter square, if you guys go and look at last summer, like around August, and then you look at what happened in December, those two times correlated in the markets where we heard that the markets were actually declining, that it was not some positive upward swing. So, notorious when we see Jupiter and Saturn square, there's some kind of squashed optimism. So I feel like it's unlikely that we are going to see some really wild positive, transits that are going to be, sending the market upward. I actually think mid-June 2025, in my opinion, is not looking so hot. And I feel like maybe there's going to be a lot of optimism and people are like, yeah, and then something breaks down. You may not see it exactly on the full moon. It might be a couple days later when Uranus comes into a square, but with Mars, and it'll be at a 28. So that definitely deals with like home matters, family matters. Maybe people are getting optimistic. Oh, interest rates are going to come down, and they don't. But I'm not seeing a lot of stability for the markets with the Jupiter Saturn square. So be careful how optimistic you guys get with this full moon. Now, in terms of setting intentions for a full moon in Sagittarius, something to think about is Sag is a fire sign. So anything that's connected to fire, which can symbolize, manifesting things or releasing things. Obviously, we can do both under a full moon, but full moons are more so correlated with kind of releasing something out into the world, not so much setting new intentions. It's about kind of amplifying and kind of bringing up the vibes, which are already pretty high. Fire transforms. That's something else to think about. It burns away the old and it kind of sparks new beginnings. So you can light candles in particular. If you guys want to work with Sagittarius colors, I would light a purple or a blue candle. This is going to be associated with Sagittarius. And you can, create an altar, for Jupiter or for Sag if that's something you guys want to do. You can put out some maps and some other, symbols and things that Sagittarius or Jupiter would like. I always like to use like maps, and I like to use pyrite, and I like sometimes to use amethyst, and I'll burn some like Jupiter incense. That's generally what I'll do. But you can do whatever you want to do. Just be careful if you guys are playing with fire. And if you do decide to do a release ritual, write down what you're wanting to let go of, right? Fears, doubts, limiting beliefs, whatever, and then safely burn that paper. You can do it over a candle. You could toss it into like a fire pit if you've got one outside. And this is positive because it's supposed to be releasing some of the blockages that we're feeling, because it's turning that list to ash. Or you can set intentions, write down your dreams or maybe places that you've been wanting to travel, things you've been wanting to learn, or just focusing on keywords to help you feel like you're living more authentically. Fold it up and put it under a candle and let the intentions kind of grow. And if you like to work with herbs for Sagittarius, I like to use sage because that's great for wisdom and also like cleansing negativity. I also like to use rosemary for clarity and protection, especially if I'm traveling, as well as cinnamon. Cinnamon is a great herb to use because it's great for igniting passion, but it also attracts abundance. And if you're a rock hound and you like to use crystals, whether you put them on an altar, maybe you wear them in a necklace or a bracelet, you throw a few in your pocket or in your bag, I recommend using turquoise because this will definitely enhance your truth speaking and your spiritual connection. I also like aventurine because it boosts optimism as well as opportunity. Obviously, amethyst, that's a great go-to kind of stone for clarity, intuition, and anything that can be like manifesting as well. Like I like to use that to like manifest new projects. Or you could use sodalite. Sodalite's great for intuition and also any kind of like philosophical insight. So now we're going to move to talking about some of the predictions that are going to be happening for the 12 rising signs. I'm going to be trying to kind of bundle everything together, right? Because, I just can't look at one thing. I'm not just going to say to you guys, here's the full moon, like this is what it means, like, and give you a textbook prediction, because you really need to take into consideration the mutable square and what's coming up there. And you also really need to take into consideration the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction and how it's squaring Saturn. So complex astrology with this one. So hopefully this is kind of helpful for you guys. I'm going to take you through the 12 rising signs, and I'm going to kind of talk about some of these aspects, what might manifest for you. I'm going to give you some tips, some predictions to work with the full moon in Sag. As a reminder, if you have any personal planets, that's going to be anywhere between 19 and 21 degrees of Sagittarius, sun, moon, or rising. This is very personal for you. Mutable signs, those degrees as well. Fire signs, you're going to like this. Air signs, you're going to like this. Water signs, we'll see. There's definitely going to be lots of changes going on for you guys in terms of like money, work, or health. So to make the most of my predictions, I really recommend listening to your rising sign. I'm a Western astrologer. That's the astrology that I like to practice. And listen to your rising sign to see where exactly this is going to be playing out for you. And then listen to your sun sign to see how it's going to be impacting your overall creativity, your career, your joy, or you personally. And you can listen to your moon sign, which I definitely would during a lunation. And this is going to talk more what you need emotionally or what's kind of going on maybe with your home, your family, or your private life. This is going to be the whole sign. So because this is 20 degrees, for some of you guys, if you're Placidus users, you may have to listen to another sign. So if it happens to be in another house, like let's say you're like a late degree rising, you want to listen to the next sign over because it might actually be in the exact house where you're having the full moon. All right. Like I said, it pays to know your chart. And we're going to start with my Aries and my Aries risings. And we're going to, actually, let me take this back a little bit because this is going to end up going into a later moon sign. There we go. All right. We're going to start with my Aries risings. All right, guys. So a lot of what I said I know resonates with you. You guys are going to have this full moon in Sagittarius in your 9th house. Okay. And by sign, Sagittarius is a fellow sister fire sign. So being that you're a fire sign, you're going to have trines to your placements. You're also going to have trines to Mars, your chart ruler, looking pretty good, to be honest with you. So my thought is that, the full moon's lighting up your 9th house. And this is a house of adventure. This is also about your beliefs. And the grand mutable cross, really what it's bringing up for you is it's kind of challenging and bringing up outdated perspectives, right? And it's about embracing spiritual growth, north node in the 12th. And it's squaring the north node, it's squaring the south node, it's opposing the sun in your 3rd house. And that tells me that some of you guys might be like, okay, full moon in the 9th, I'm traveling, I'm planning a trip, I'm going back to school, I'm graduating. Maybe you're meeting like a new teacher, right? That can be kind of happening. But really what it's tied to is Jupiter and Mercury in the bottom part of your chart. Okay. So the growth that's happening is actually going through your 4th house. So somebody in the family might be getting married. You might be going home for graduation. It's possible that you're thinking about moving further away. Maybe there's going to be enhanced communication with family. Something like that's going to be kind of happening. And I think this is really about heartfelt conversations with family or anything revolving around your family goals. And I'm predicting for you guys a new trip or study could definitely shift your worldview. And if you're thinking about going and looking at new places where you would like to move to, now is a good time to start kind of planning that. I would maybe be like journaling and kind of writing down a list of, what your dreams are or where you're wanting to travel or visit next. The only challenge here is that, Jupiter and Mercury, which is great news on the home front, it's squaring Saturn and Neptune in your sign. So it's kind of like you going, well, I don't really know where I want to go. So we're going to kind of like look around. We're going to travel a little bit. We're going to see what's out there, until I get a feel for things. As I'm an Aries moon, I'm actually starting to see some of that stuff manifesting from my moon. So it's really interesting that really resonates for me. So let's take a look. Let's see what do the cards say for Aries and Aries risings for you guys in regards to this full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. You get the 4 of coins, which I like actually in this sense for you guys, because the 4 of coins is kind of like hold your horses. Like we don't need to make a decision just right now. And that's wonderful because I think with Mercury conjunct Jupiter, some people are like, let's move right now. Let's put the house up for sale. Like, let's, move to another country. Like, let's do this. And like, there is some sense of caution and really thinking things through before you're making any significant, big home or family changes. So this can be about possessiveness. Sometimes it is about kind of holding on to things too tightly, focusing on stability, savings, having boundaries, being guarded, maybe being frugal. So there could be a sense of being like, well, I'm not gonna buy something unless it's the right price, or I'm not gonna be, just immediately deciding to move. I'm gonna take my time, or I'm gonna be cautious about where I'm gonna be kind of, investing my time or my energy. And I think that's a positive card, because there's a lot of things in this full moon that make me feel like you'd be like gung-ho, but you're trying to focus on your vision. You're trying to be smart about ultimately where you're going to go. So you guys have to let me know what happens. I hope that that's helpful for you. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? All right, so you're doing the full moon in Sag. It's taking place in your natal 8th house, which is a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you. So some of the things that come up during this full moon in Sag, you don't see coming, right? It's kind of like it's a blind spot. The other thing that you want to think about is that your chart ruler, Venus, even though Venus in your sign, beautiful, chef's kiss, great for your appearance, great for beauty, is in a square with Pluto. So there is definitely a little bit of like, can I just live my life? Can I just do what I need to do, or focus on me, or feel like I'm kind of like taking a step back away from having to be like on at work all of the time? Like there's something going on there. Anyway, so the full moon's in your 8th house. And this is a house that really is about kind of stirring up deep emotions around intimacy, vulnerability, shared resources. There could be like bills that are coming due. There could be big changes with your partner's money. There could be tax stuff, inheritance stuff. Something like that is kind of going on at the time of the full moon, all right? And the grand mutable cross to the north node in the 5th, the south node in Virgo, and the opposition to the sun in your 2nd house of income is asking you to let go and trust your intuition, right? So where is that intuition kind of coming in? Well, it's coming in through Jupiter and Mercury, which sextile Venus in your sign. So Jupiter in your 3rd house, Mercury in your 3rd house can be excellent for speaking your truth, boosting communication, traveling, going on short distance trips, moving, signing contracts, starting a new website, a new YouTube channel, right? Maybe a new blog, buying a new car. So if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I want to get a new vehicle, and you're trying to finance something with the full moon in your 8th house, you might get that email or that letter of approval, or, hey, yes, you got approved for the rental, or, hey, we're going to spend a little bit of money on traveling. Something like that is kind of coming up. And I think it's good news. Good news from siblings, good news from neighbors as well, or just kind of like joy trips can be going on. I would just say with the square that's happening to Saturn and Neptune in your 12th house, there is like a sense of you being cautious and careful before you share the good news, right? So there can be a sense of you going, I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. Like, I'm not going to tell people I'm doing something. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to work on it, and I'm going to put it out there. I'm not going to tell people I'm moving. I'm just going to go and check a place out, and then I'm going to, make the decision. And it is possible for some of you guys that a financial or emotional breakthrough is very likely, because this is hitting the parts of your chart that deal with money, maybe conversations with, siblings or relatives or family about money could be happening. And I would just meditate on what it is you want to transform within relationships with other people. And that could be your relationship to money. That could be also your relationship to certain family members, because that kind of comes up with the conjunction in your 3rd house. So let's take a look and let's see for Taurus and Taurus risings, what do they need to know for this full moon? I get the 8 of Cups. Walking away from something, I think that the 8th house can be about conclusions, completions, and endings, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. Like, it could mean that you get a phone call from, a sibling that's like, hey, we're moving, we're just letting you know. And you're like, oh, okay, they're finally deciding to leave. Or maybe you make up your mind that you're finally ready to kind of like get a new car. You're finally ready to make a job change. This is about walking away from something. This is about letting go, finding your truth, and leaving something behind. So it could be an old, outdated belief, right? That's possible here as well. But it looks like you're definitely walking away from something and making a change. And like when the 8 of Cups comes up, you're not looking back. You're like, okay, only forward. Right? We're not going to reassess or rethink or kind of get stuck in the past. We're moving forward. So let me know how that goes, Taurus. Gemini and Gemini rising. You're having a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 7th house in your opposite sign. My goodness, your sun squares the nodes, your moon squares the nodes. There's some big stuff going on in relationships. The full moon is in your natal 7th house, so it's highlighting relationships, whether that's meeting somebody new, breaking up with a therapist. It could be about a new business partner, your interaction with clients. If you have a client-based business, it could also be a big turning point in the life of a partner. And we're going to see this grand mutable cross, which is going to be really balancing your needs with other people's. And with the sun in your first house, you're like, yeah, what about me? What do I think? What do I have to say? And then the moon in the seventh is going to represent the emotions, the changes, the shifts that another person is going through. And it's going to highlight the dynamic of you and someone else. Now, this doesn't have to be romantic. Relationship with family, and it's scoring the south node in the fourth. Relationship with your career or people who you kind of like work with, north node in the 10th. Could be you're going back and forth with your partner going like, okay, what do we do? Do we move? Do we change jobs? What are we doing? And everything is about to change, I think, from this full moon. The silver lining here is that I think a lot of the changes that are going to happen are going to be with other people, okay? 7th house. The silver lining here is also the fact that Jupiter and Mercury, so your chart ruler and your partner, is conjunct in the 2nd house. So if there's one thing I know, you guys are likely going to be on the same team. You're going to have the same perspective. You're going to want the same things. And Cancer is like, you're going to be like on the same page about a budget or about what you want to spend on a home or family matter or about where you want to live or what kind of investments you guys want to make. So I definitely feel like that Jupiter-Mercury conjunction is sparking ideas for financial growth. And I predict for you guys a key relationship could reach a turning point. Maybe having an honest conversation with a partner or a friend. But for some people, it could mean, oh my God, I'm getting engaged. And Jupiter, Mercury in your 2nd house is like the sparkly ring, right? Or the big turning point where you're buying furniture together, you're moving in together. So there's going to be something happening there. And in a business sense, I could see this being really positive and kind of lucrative for clients, bringing in people who could be, definitely good for you financially and create a lot of business. The challenge is that both Mercury and Jupiter are squaring Saturn and Neptune. So maybe it's like you and your partner are like, yeah, we're making this, big announcement, or we're going to be moving, or we're going to be starting this business. And like you may experience it, or some people that are like, are you sure you want to do that? Saturn and Neptune could be like the haters, people who are doubting. Maybe you're like, well, we don't want to tell people what we're doing until we do it, And I think that's really smart. I think across the board with Jupiter square Saturn, just in general, I would be like, yeah, until you know that something's going to go through, don't say anything. Don't get too optimistic. But especially with Mercury being involved, right? Keep some of these things private. Cancer can be about privacy. And Saturn and Neptune is really kind of saying in Aries, until you see the big picture, until you can see everything clearly, don't be telling people about some of the moves that you're making. All right, Gemini, let's take a look. What do the cards say for you when it comes to this full moon in Sagittarius? 5 of Coins, which is interesting because the astrology would argue, okay, to play devil's advocate, that the conjunction in the 2nd house is actually really good for money. And something that I think about is that even though this is your money house, it's 8 houses away from the full moon. And it's also 8 houses away from your partner. So it could represent your partner saying, okay, we need to make more money, or we need to invest money, or I have this idea, and it's going to be like, well, it's going to cost money to make money. Well, that's a good idea, but what's it going to cost? And the 5 of Coins is a difficult card because this is a card that talks about hardship, or maybe it's overcoming hardship. Maybe there's been some issues coming up where, you have felt like you've been struggling, or you've been dealing with unemployment, or maybe there's some kind of, challenges that's been going on in the financial department, and you're really trying to overcome that. And maybe that's part of the harsh reality of the Saturn-Neptune square, where it's like, okay, well, get real about your dreams. Like if there's something you really want to do financially, something you want to build or invest in, you can't have that perspective that everything's going to work out, it's going to be fine. And if you have a Sagittarius descendant, your partners can be hopelessly and gloriously optimistic, but you got to crunch those numbers and you got to make sure that things are going to make sense. And this is also really about sticking to a budget. So that way you make sure that you're not kind of in a situation where there is delays for some of this good stuff to come in, right? Good luck, Gemini. Let me know how that goes. All right, we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? You're going to be doing the full moon in Sag in your natal 6th house, okay? And obviously we know the 6th house deals all with work, pets, wellness, your schedule. It can be about anything connected to getting health results, things going on with your coworkers. It could also be that there is some kind of like finale going on revolving around an improvement that you've been making with your health. I've Notice a lot of Cancer risings have been commenting, being like, I'm not gaining weight, I'm gaining muscle, right? So if you've been working hard, this can be the full moon where you're starting to see some of the results, right? With the full moon in the 6th. So I think for you guys, because this is, technically in a sign that in conjunction quincunxes you, it can mean that for those of you guys who were not aware of a coworker matter, a health matter, a schedule change or whatever, it can kind of come out of left field during the time of the full moon. Now, the positive is that the ruler of your 6th house is on your ascendant, right? So for some of you guys, you're aware that the Jupiter transit can make you gain weight. It can also make you maybe more hungry. It can make you more travel happy. It could get you pregnant, right? So some of you guys are like, well, I need to schedule things better, or I need to be, looking at my calendar and seeing what I can and cannot do, or I need to be sticking to a routine, or I need to be making some health adjustments. So it's working in your favor in that regard. But I think with Jupiter and Mercury conjunct, in your 1st house, you're looking for mind, body, spirit balance. So it's not all work and no play, but equally it's not all sleep and, no commitment or no structure. And Sagittarius is not great for structure. It's great for kind of flying by the seat of its pants. So I think the mutable cross that's coming up during the full moon is really kind of saying for you that, if you want to go to school, if you want to work, if you want to make time for the gym, whatever, it's asking you to kind of get your schedule right. And, maybe it's about releasing perfectionism and prioritizing self-care. Maybe the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction in your 1st house boosts some kind of confidence and self-expression and also your intuition. You're going to be a lot more in tune with your body than usual. Now, I'm predicting that a new job or a new routine could emerge. Maybe you're learning more about health and wellness. Maybe you're doing some kind of health certification course. Maybe you're getting, a new job that's going to be perfect for your lifestyle. I would just encourage you guys to set intentions for a healthier lifestyle, make those appointments to check in with your doctors, your practitioners, anybody like that. There could definitely be more of like a fine eye for critiquing yourself, maybe with Mercury and Jupiter in your 1st house. But I think that those of you guys who have been already putting in the hard work, now you're going to actually finally start to see some of the results. Keep in mind also that, Jupiter and Mercury are squaring Saturn and Neptune in your 10th house. So where you're focusing on health, organization, your routine, it's almost like you're having to do that because now there is this new responsibility, at work. And now you're working in a new field, or you've gone back to work, or you're, trying to kind of strategize and plan to retire. Maybe you're taking on some kind of management role. Maybe you've launched your own business. So you're like, man, I need to kind of keep my schedule in order and make sure that I'm making time to take care of myself as well. All right, so let's see what cards are coming up for you. The card that I get is the King of Swords. So I'd be keeping my eyes out for, a Gemini, Libra, or an Aquarius that you may have a conversation with that might be relaying information to you at work, meetings, significant emails, contracts, negotiations. But this could also mean that you're really focusing on master your communication and telling people when you are and are not available, maybe sharing schedules, things like that. This can be a card that deals with reason, authority, discipline, integrity, morality, seriousness, high standards, and strictness. So maybe you've been a little bit more strict with your sleep schedule, your diet, your working schedule, your fitness, whatever. And now it's like you're starting to kind of see it's not just about the physical results, the mental clarity that you guys are going to have from being more physically active and also kind of organizing your schedule and your routines in a way that makes time for everything that you want to do. And you realize you're more mentally clear and also wow, I'm so much happier when I'm actually having me time versus time that I'm working versus time that's going to be off, right? Or focusing on friends or family, scheduling that out so that way you're feeling like there's more of a balance. And Jupiter, your 1st house, is definitely going to bring the joy. So I hope that's helpful for you, Cancer. All right, we got Leo and Leo rising. What's up, Leo? You are doing this full moon in Sagittarius in your natal 5th house of love, romance, creativity, and children. My goodness, it's going to be trining your Leo placements as well as Mars. It's also trining Saturn and Neptune in your sign. So I think you're loving this, as I think most of the fire placements are going to. As we know, the 5th house can be about an amazing first date, falling in love, hobbies, creative projects, our children. All of these things shine. And the 5th house is a house that you resonate with because it's traditionally associated with Leo. So I love the fire trine because this can mean that there is something really significant revolving around creativity, dating, traveling, all kind of syncing up. But it could also mean that there is more going on than what meets the eye. Like the north and the south node being involved with the square means that you are being pushed to create something, to bring something to fruition, to show a completed project, to put the spotlight on your children or your romantic kind of lives. And obviously the opposition to your sun being the ruler is pretty significant as well. I think that this is about letting go of self-doubt. This is about embracing joy. And it's interesting to see Jupiter and Mercury being featured in your 12th house, because I feel like this is like a trust fall for you, where you're like, you know what? I just need to enjoy this time. I just need to be happy. I just need to focus on what makes me happy. I just need to spend time with my kids. I just need a little, time kind of behind the scenes just to kind of rest and recuperate. It could be sparking intuitive insights. It could be great for your practical, spiritual kind of practice. Traveling in a foreign land. I mean, Sagittarius full moon, heck yeah, but especially in the 12th. But it could also mean like a baby is being born, right? For example, pretty soon, because the 5th house could be a baby comes in, Jupiter and Mercury in the 12th, you're in the hospital or you're visiting somebody who's having a baby, or maybe, you're trying to take care of your kids and they're sick and they're up all night and you're like, I love them, but I'm having to spend time where there's something going on that can be disrupting my sleep. This will also be squaring Saturn and Neptune in your 9th house. And that can be a little tricky, especially when it comes to your beliefs, your philosophy, higher education, or travel. There could be some challenges. So if you have something planned, you might notice there's like flight changes or there's some delays or kind of some changes, accommodations that could happen. But I'm hoping that for the most part, this is more about a creative project or some kind of romantic endeavor heating up. Some big positive change, when it comes to, launching a new project or a big life event, maybe in the lives of one of your children. I would recommend creating art, going on a date, doing something that's going to be playful, tapping into your subconscious, start dream journaling, or kind of decoding your dreams, because it can give you a lot of insight with some of those placements in your 12th house. Meditating as well. Sleeping as well. What you create and work on behind closed doors, And whatever you create feels very sacred with this full moon. All right, so what does Leo and Leo rising need to know for the full moon in Sag? We get the 4 of Cups, which is interesting. Maybe that's like the Mercury Jupiter. That's just like, I feel like I need to be in a quiet place where I can like kind of contemplate things, maybe feeling a little disconnected, but art and creativity can help. This is also about maybe feeling a little bored or indifferent or like discontent, which you generally do not see with a full moon in the 5th house. Generally there is like, oh my God, this should make me so happy. But like, ooh, something feels off. What is that? Let me meditate on it. Let me kind of reflect and ask myself, why doesn't it feel as good as it should? Or like, what did I expect? Or like, why is there some like disappointment here? That's kind of coming up for you. It's also possible that maybe you're feeling like you're not getting some of like the recognition that you're wanting for something, that you were hoping that, whether it's your allies, your audience, your friends, somebody was going to be, more kind of excited for you or more supportive of you. And you're like, why am I not getting that? Because you're looking for that validation. But lean into the moon, trine Chiron and Mars. I feel like this is about giving it to yourself and not feeling like you have to get it from other people. Good luck, Leo. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. What's up, Virgo? All right, you're doing the full moon in Sagittarius in your natal 4th house. And obviously, as with all the mutable signs, a little colorful because you guys are really feeling the squares. And for you, the South Node is in your personal sign. So right off the bat, that really piques my interest. 4th house is going to highlight home and family. So usually with like full moons in the 4th house, we're buying a house, selling a house, moving, renovating, cleaning out the garage. We're going back home. We're visiting with family. There's some big family happenings and things that are kind of evolving and changing. And the moon is connected to your house of friendships, right? So there's going to be some connection to, we're having a house party, we're inviting people over, or there is some family celebration, or there is going to be some kind of gathering, something like that. I think that for you, having planets square the North and the South Node is pretty prominent because it's really asking you personally to release you're overthinking, right? Or needing to feel like everything needs to be perfect. When in reality, it wants you to lean more into the North Node, which is going to be like, intuitively navigating relationships, anything in regards to commitment, partnerships, therapists, your one-on-one relationships, things like that. And it wants you to be in harmony and in unison with another person. Now, what's interesting is your Mercury. So Mercury rules you as well as your career. So for Mercury to be in the 11th house, it's great for team projects, working with new teams. It's great for having meetings, team building exercises, and it will be conjunct Jupiter, which is your 7th house ruler. So let's say from a business standpoint, great for networking, great for getting out there and meeting people, great for having like professional connections and having allies and people who could help you if you're wanting to make a job change. By the same token, I think that if you're single, I would get out there and mingle. I would go to the barbecues. I would go to the parties. I would go to the get-togethers, the friend dinners, the family gatherings, because you might meet someone. Mercury, Jupiter, conjunct. So, who knows? Maybe you're like, I just got to get out of the house. I got to go somewhere. And your friend says, come over, we're having people over. And then you end up meeting somebody who could be like an amazing partner. And vice versa. You can have people over at your house. Somebody brings a friend and you're like, who's your friend? Some kind of connection there. So relationships with family can be really positive. And I think this is great for feeling kind of inspired by some kind of group connection. I predict for my Virgos and my Virgo risings. Oh, one other thing. With Mercury coming out of the square with Saturn and Neptune, I think that this is also talking about where there has been some pretty significant shifts or transformations of the self, or letting go of old identities, or maybe there has been some grief recently. You need to get out and you need to socialize. Like, I don't know what you guys have started kind of going through with Saturn and Neptune in the 8th house already. Some heavy stuff, emotionally, loss related, some financial challenges, or maybe issues with partners. Friends will offer you, some kind of like safety and some warm embraces, I think, with Mercury and Jupiter in the 11th. So it's good to go and do that. All right. I am predicting for you guys that a family truth or move could surface, some kind of, turning point in regards to property or family matter. And I would recommend connecting with friends who I feel like are going to be joyful and optimistic, and wanting to have a good time. All right, so let's take a look. What do Virgo and Virgo risings need to know about this full moon in Sag in their 4th house? I get the King of Wands, which I like because, sure, there could be a fire sign in Aries, a Leo or a Sag that can come in that can kind of help you. Maybe if you have like a Sagittarius, like parent, I'd pay attention, or a relative. But this could talk about you being like, that's it, we're moving house, or we're making the change, or there is going to be something that's going to shift here. It can also mean that, this is about you feeling like you're taking on more of like a leadership role at home. Maybe this is about the big picture, taking control, taking daring decisions, being bold, and being optimistic. So maybe it means that you're like, hey, we are going to go and check out an area where our friends have moved or relocated to, or maybe we are considering, venturing into another part of the world, or maybe we will travel and get out of the house, right? It could be that as well. But it looks like you're going to be really all about some of the moving and shaking that's going on with those fire trines. Hope it's good for you, my Virgo and Virgo risings. All right, we got Libra and Libra rising. What's up, Libra? All right, so you're going to be experiencing the full moon in Sagittarius in the 3rd house, and this is friendly with all of the air signs. So obviously, Gemini, you have an opposition, but for Aquarius and for Libra, you're experiencing a sextile. So Libra, this is pretty friendly for you. 3rd house obviously is going to deal with communication, all right, and completing things revolving around communication, like signing contracts, finishing websites, making big announcements, big statements. It could be about short distance trips, traveling, things pertaining to your siblings, and also connections to your neighbors. Vehicles kind of get highlighted here as well. Now, at the time of the full moon, just keep in mind that Venus, your chart ruler, is starting to come out of a square with Pluto. So there looks like there's been a little bit of tension revolving around matters of the heart and joint finances, resources, and maybe intimacy stuff, or some drama in the love department that's been kind of coming up recently. However, obviously we're going to be seeing that Jupiter is the ruler of this full moon. So even though it's highlighting communications, connections, traveling, I think that it's going to be coming through your 10th house, which is going to be like career oriented. Now, this full moon is also going to create a grand mutable cross in your chart, and this is squaring the north and the south node and the 12th and the 6th. And what this is bringing up for you is really, I think, about speaking authentically, right? The square with the moon in the 3rd house, what's on your mind, and maybe releasing any like mental clutter, or, maybe making the time to write, communicate, teach, and share. What I like about this is that the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction is at the top part of your chart, and it's great for making announcements. So if you're a Libra rising, and you're like, I want to sign a business contract, I want to publish a book, I want to launch my website, I want to make some big statement about, who I'm working with or what I'm doing or where I'm going, this is a good time to do it. You're going to get a lot of traction, a lot of visibility. The only hang up here is that you are going to see that by sign, it's 10 signs away from you. So it's really putting the pressure on you to like come out and talk about or say something or share something that might be private. It's good for international business and like I said, publishing or teaching. And it is in a square to Saturn and Neptune. So if you're an early degree sun, moon, or rising Libra, let's say 0 to about 5 degrees, this is going to make Mercury and Jupiter the focal point of a square between your sun, moon, or rising and Saturn and Neptune in your 7th. Well, what can I say about this? I mean, I think it's tricky because a lot of this is saying that there may be a lot of like letting the cat out of the bag with this full moon. And you may be feeling like there is a need to be positive about some of the changes that are happening in your relationships, or that you're needing to be more positive and optimistic about the fact that you're moving on from a working relationship. A lot of the success that you have with Jupiter in your 10th house is going to be built on whether or not you're working or partnering with the right people. So whether it's who you're dating, who you're married to, who your clients are, who your business partner is, who your manager is, who your therapist is, that person and their clarity and their ability to like really see clearly is going to either positively or negatively impact your visibility, your ability to focus on your career or your bigger purpose, whatever that may be. So my thought here is that for sure, it's going to boost your career ideas for sure. And I'm predicting that there could be a bold pitch or conversation that could really open up doors for you, Libra. I would just recommend like share your story publicly, share something that other people could relate to. Maybe that's like a little bit more secretive or giving a little bit more insight on you. It's going to make you relatable. And I also feel like this is a wonderful time if you need to finish up a website, be more prominent on social media. If you want to start by dropping a blog or a podcast or something like that, I would be doing it right around this time. All right, so let's see what we need to tell Libras and Libra risings for this full moon in the sign of Sagittarius in the 3rd house. Card that I get is the Page of Coins. All right, so this can be obviously a Taurus, a Virgo, or a Capricorn, but this can also be talking about a new opportunity, right? Something new, some new like seed that's being planted. Perhaps maybe some Libras are going to be focusing on like spending money on boosting their visibility. Maybe they're going to be saying, I'm rebranding, or I'm offering a new service, or I'm offering a new product. And that's the investment, the seed that's being planted. So this is going to be about being ambitious, diligent, goal-oriented, planning, being consistent, star student. This is also about being grounded, loyal, faithful, and dependable. In a business sense, because we do see that it is an emphasis in your career house, it does talk about new job, careers, and opportunities. So some of you guys might be accepting some kind of contract, or you might be traveling for work. So be optimistic about that. Looks like there's going to be some financial opportunities that are going to come through there. And I hope it's a good one for you guys. We got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's up, Scorpio? You're doing the full moon in Sagittarius in your natal 2nd house of money, income, self-esteem, and personal possessions. So obviously when you have the moon in the 2nd house, the sun in the 8th house, this is the financial axis for both you and Taurus. So this is a little bit more about money stuff. Obviously this will be focusing on money and self-worth. Sometimes when we have the full moon go through the 2nd house, it can mean that there is some big payout, but there could be some major purchase. There could be some expense that's kind of, going on at the time of the full moon. And it's an interesting one for you. I think for all of the water signs, I predict lots of changes with money and career and health. That's the theme because it's in those houses. And it is trining and making aspect to Mars. So in your case, Mars being your chart ruler at the top part of your chart means that if you've been putting in the blood, sweat, and tears, if you've been working your butt off, if there has been some major, things moving and shaking or things that have been kind of on the burners, this could materialize as like you actually getting a nice chunk of change, and you could start to see the hard work is really paying off. The other way that I look at this is that, something to think about is you do also have Mars is starting to come into a square with Uranus. So it's like, burning the candle at both ends, and some of the friction or some of the issues that can kind of cause within relationships or with certain clients or other people. You have to watch for that tension, right? And then if there is someone or something that you're cutting off, the physical or the financial implication of that with that full moon that's going to be in your second house. Now, you are going to see the grand mutable cross, which is pretty significant. The squares in your north and south node transits is talking about the changes and the fluctuations that happen financially. But I think it's really trying to get you to like release and let go of any issues that you have revolving around like scarcity mindset, because the sun is going through your 8th house. So it's about the changes that can happen, but these can be positive changes. Now, Mercury is obviously conjunct Jupiter. And Jupiter is the ruler, and these two planets are in the 9th house in a fellow sister water sign. So if you happen to be an early degree Scorpio, I would say 0 to about maybe 5 degrees. Jupiter and Mercury are trining your Scorpio placements, which is really great. It's great for intuition. You're going to be more emotional. And what this is saying is that maybe you're springing and you're spending some money, second house full moon, on travel, on education, on movement, on relocation. Maybe you're kind of open-minded with the 9th house Jupiter transit, especially because it ties in Mercury. So it's going to be about your goals when it comes to, what you believe in. But it could also mean that you're, paying for a course. You're going to be going back to school. There is some kind of program that you're taking. So it's going to be travel or I think, education related, and that might be the expense that's coming through. But the 9th house in general, it inspires the bigger picture. So there's definitely some kind of future thinking that's kind of going on. And I'm predicting for you guys that there could be a financial opportunity or a new value system that could emerge. Just taking into consideration that Jupiter and Mercury will be squaring Saturn and Neptune. So even though you're really optimistic about this new perspective where you're traveling, what you believe in, what you're learning, you have to really look at your schedule, and you have to manage and ask yourself, is it going to work with, your work schedule? Is it going to work with some health or employee stuff that you've got going on? Who's going to watch, the cat or the dog if you're going to be making some of these particular moves? But set goals, I would say, for abundance and for learning. Certainly, this can be a wonderful full moon for both of those things. All right, so let's take a look and let's see. It's interesting. You guys also have the Venus square Pluto. I should have said that, but Pluto's your other ruler. So you've got squares between Mars and Uranus, and you've got squares between Venus and Pluto. So what's going on, Scorpio? There's some stuff here that's like, okay, either changes in the home and how that's impacting relationships, or how relationships are impacting changes, at work. You guys have it both ways. You're almost done with those squares. All right, so this is what you need to know for the full moon in Sagittarius. What a great card. This is the sun, so obviously it talks about accomplishment, overcoming something, success. Oh, great, right? Hard work, the payoff. But I'm looking at the sun in the 8th house, which really could be the payoff, that something has changed positively when it comes to joint income, resources, maybe your career, and this is a positive thing. So the sun is about happiness, success, optimism, vitality, joy, confidence, and truth. From a financial perspective, because the full moon is in your second house, this says this is about prosperity and abundance. So quite a significant full moon for my Scorpio and Scorpio risings. Maybe something shiny that you've always wanted. Now you can pick it up. Maybe it's going to be about some good news that's just warming your heart space. Maybe it's going to be about a total shift in perspective about your relationship to money. And you're starting to see that there can be other things that you can be putting your money towards, like travel or education, that's going to feel more fulfilling. Good luck, Scorpio. We've got Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? This is your full moon. So especially pay attention if you're 19 to 21 degrees, okay? Because that's going to be smack dab on your placements. Pretty significant for you. It means that this is like a really big turning point. And obviously in the first house, this is your moment, right? This is your moment. So this can be about a big glow up, a big change. It could be about some major improvement. It could be about your moods and your emotions, and just really focusing on you. Now, obviously, it's an aspect to the sun in the seventh, so it's a lot about how you're responding to things that are going on with your relationships, your partnerships, your closest one-on-one people, so your clients, your spouses, your allies, your therapist. And you're going to see that the moon is going to square the north node, the south node, as will the sun. So that grand mutable cross is really saying that this is about how you emotionally are either changing or evolving or coming into your own, and how that's impacting relationships, especially with your family and your career. So with this, especially for all the mutable rising signs, this is like where the wheel of the chart, starts to really turn. And for me, the Grand Cross is asking you to balance your kind of more bold, sassy identity with others' needs, right? And you're like, I know this is a full moon that's all about me, but it can be complementary. I think with the sun in your seventh house, it could be saying like how, you're adding some kind of positive reflection back to your partner, and like learning how to be different but working together. And that could be with your siblings, Gemini, that could be with your family, north node, the fourth house, that could be with clients, south node, and Virgo, and just the back and forth with you have with other people. Thank God, right, that the chart ruler and the full moon ruler, Jupiter, is conjunct Mercury. So that tells me that like you guys can have different beliefs, different perspectives, different opinions, different ideas, but you can work together. You guys can find ways to go, you know what, you want this, I want that. How can we kind of meet in the middle and make a change? And it's in Cancer in your eighth house. So this means that it's really about, working together, team effort. I think it's also really deepening emotional connections. It can mean that there is something that you're about to receive. The eighth house can be about inheritance. It can be about your partner coming into some money. This can be about tax-related things. It could be bonuses, windfalls, that just kind of comes out of nowhere. Now, here's the other thing to think about, okay? Jupiter rules your body, okay? While Jupiter is in the eighth house, it's going through a transformation. Eighth house is also pregnancy. So with it conjunct Mercury, there could be a conversation with a partner that's like, hey, do you want to do this thing? Or surprise, that could happen. And it's not unusual for a full moon in the first house to materialize as, oh my God, okay, well, there's something going on, or I'm about to have my baby, or I'm talking about having another one. Or, transforming your home, trying to get a new loan on your home, or trying to qualify for a mortgage, or, trying to get a lower interest rate. That could be another transformation of, Cancer things. But there's definitely something there. And the other thing that you're going to want to think about is that Jupiter and the moon have mutual reception. So there's definitely a big change either with you emotionally, physically, or when it comes to your home. It's going to be one of those three things that's going to happen. But some kind of abundance is coming your way. You just can't quite see it because it's in a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you. And then finally, we're also seeing that Mercury and Jupiter are in a square with Saturn and Neptune in the fifth. So that could mean, there is some new responsibilities when it comes to fifth house things, children, your love life, dating, creativity, anything revolving around self-expression, some kind of creative endeavors that you're working on. And you're like, how can I bring more money that way? Like, how can I also make investments? Huge for big emotional and psychological breakthroughs, especially if you're healing any heartbreak, if you're healing inner child issues, if there's anything coming up, emotionally or psychologically that you're trying to kind of work through. Art therapy can be good. Talk therapy can be good. And I think that this is just going to be a really big change for a lot of Sag and Sag rising. So I predict a personal truth or a transformation is on the horizon with this full moon. Just embrace your authenticity, shine on unapologetically. And when these changes come, don't freak out, because they're actually going to be really good for you, teaching you vulnerability and how to express what you need in your relationships. The card that I got for you is the Eight of Pentacles, which means it's all going to work out. It's going to work itself out. But this is also about like working hard for something. This is about skill. This is also about craftsmanship, quality, high standards, expertise, mastery, commitment, dedication, or accomplishment. So if you've been working hard on an investment strategy, or maybe a business or a creative project, it can be where you're starting to see the payoff, right? People are saying, wow, you're doing a really great job, or there's this so high quality. Maybe it's also about just emotionally some of the work that you've been doing on yourself, and now it's shining from the inside out. People can see just the changes that you've been making, and maybe you're getting a lot of like compliments and stuff from other people about all the work that you've been putting in. Okay, good for career, good for money here as well. Sag, obviously, let me know what happens. I'll talk to you soon. All right, we got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be doing this full moon in Sagittarius in your natal 12th house, which is a little bit more hidden, a little bit more private, behind the scenes, spiritual, but also you might notice some changes in your sleep kind of pattern that happens here. The full moon in the 12th house is very introspective. So usually we kind of feel like we're crawling out of our skin a little bit. But just take some time to kind of be alone, to reflect, maybe to do something, to kind of like ritualize the things that you're clearing out and that you're releasing. I think it's interesting because this is going to be, on one hand, making some aspects in the sky that is really great for emotional depth and clearing, trine to Mars, trine to Chiron. But on the other hand, we are going to see the ruler Jupiter in hard aspect to Saturn. So it is definitely going to be checking you a little bit, but for good reason. 12th house full moon for me, I think that what this is really kind of bringing up with the grand mutable cross is that this is a turning point for you to really release any hidden fears and learn to trust your intuition, right? I think it's really about that. And I think that you're going to see whether it's trusting your intuition when it comes to business partners, romantic partners, therapists, like even who you listen to astrologically, for example, that's your 7th house. And I say these specific people because the ruler of this particular full moon is going to be Jupiter, and Jupiter is going to be in the 7th. So it's likely that and I said this in my horoscopes, there's going to be stuff that's going to be coming out about relationships or partnerships of some kind that you did not know. And that's because Jupiter rules your 12th house and it's in the 7th. Now, maybe you're meeting foreign, people. Maybe you meet a foreign romantic partner. Maybe you have foreign clients and you notice there's more of them than usual. That's one way to look at it. But if you're in a committed relationship, or let's say it's about a close relationship with a family member, Cancer, they're going to be letting you in on things and telling you things you did not know. And it doesn't have to be bad. It's just like, why did you never tell me that? I had no idea what's going on. Or maybe you're learning new things about somebody who you just started dating. So this is significant because it is saying that you're needing to do some kind of subconscious clearing before you bring in new relationship opportunities. So if you're single, right, this is like the last, okay, I'm healing, I'm like wrapping things up, I'm getting ready, I'm going to put myself out there soon. And you're going to see the ruler, Jupiter, in Cancer, where it's exalted in your relationship house, squaring Saturn and Neptune in Aries in your 4th house. So if you guys listen to my horoscopes, I use the example of 7th house can be grandparents. Cancer obviously can be women. Jupiter is wise. So there could be wise women that are kind of in your life that are like, you need to get out there and meet somebody. You can't hide in your house all day. You got to put yourself out there, and you need to kind of pull yourself out of feeling stuck in a home, family, property dispute, domestic, kind of related issue. It can also mean that some of you guys have moved back home, Saturn, Neptune in the 4th, or you're taking care of a parent and you're like, am I ever going to meet anyone? Release any of the doubts revolving around relationships. I've seen it in the lives of my clients. I've experienced it. I really liked the Jupiter square Saturn transit. I felt like it was actually really good. And somebody will come into your life that can be funny and exciting and adventurous, that can kind of help you get out of that Saturn Neptune slump in the 4th. Obviously, it's going to impact you, I think, a little bit more because you're ruled by Saturn. And that might mean that you're going to be a little bit more critical or cautious about, kind of fully opening up to somebody. It could be a new therapist, right? It could be a family member. It could be somebody that you just met. But it will enhance partnerships, and it's urging you to release some of these hidden fears revolving around relationships. So I'm predicting that a spiritual or emotional breakthrough is likely going to happen with this full moon in your 12th house. I would just advise you to meditate or journal to uncover, where are these blockages and what am I afraid of? And what's kind of holding me back? And you may have a lot of clarity, you may have dreams or something significant that comes through that shows you what you're kind of finishing up before you kind of get to that next phase, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you guys, my Capricorns and my Capricorn risings. Let's take a look and let's see. What the cards say for you for this full moon in your 12th. Ooh, you get the Six of Cups. It's a soulmate card. So this is a card that's about being nostalgic. It can also be about memories, what's familiar, healing, comfort, feeling sentimental, as well as pleasure. But this can be about connecting with somebody who you're like, oh, they're familiar, or reconnecting with somebody that you haven't seen in a while, or maybe just feeling like there's like a really strong soul tie to someone. And I could see like with Saturn and Neptune being in the past, and Jupiter and Mercury being in the 7th, it's like, you're now opening up to new future potentials, and you're having to let the past behind. You have to let it go. So maybe this can be a little bittersweet for some of you guys, but this I definitely feel like is giving you the opportunity to really forge a new path with relationships and kind of get out of your own way. All right, Capricorn, hopefully that's helpful for you guys. All right, we got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's up, Aquarius? We're doing the full moon in Sag in your natal 11th house. And the 11th house is like the party zone, friends, allies, networking, goal fulfillment, having fun with others. And it does sextile Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising. So it is a friendly kind of aspect for you guys. I like the full moon in the 11th house. Usually we'll feel like there is some sense of celebration, growth within community, some big accomplishment, some, like I said, goal fulfillment. And it can definitely be a time where you're wanting to be around people who you're closest to, right? So something that I think about with this full moon, outside of the fact that we are going to see the grand mutable cross between the North, the South node, and the opposition of the 5th, is that, for you guys, there is going to be that Mars-Uranus square that's kind of brewing. And Uranus obviously is your modern day ruler, so there can be a little bit of tension with relationships and home and family matters, and there's somebody rubbing somebody the wrong way, or somebody is like really pushing for some change or evolution at home. And I also think about the fact that Jupiter, the ruler of this particular full moon, is coming into an inconjunct or quincunx with Pluto in your sign. Scheduling changes, changes revolving around the help, and whether that's people who babysit, cook, clean, do your laundry, people who take care of the yard work, employees, scheduling changes, health changes. It's really highlighting for a lot of you guys, like needing to really pay attention to your health and habits. Okay. Anyway. So maybe in a social setting, it's like not overdoing it. It's like, okay, I'm still recovering from something and I'm on crutches and I can't get out on the dance floor, but I can be with my friends. I can go out and I can socialize, but I'm not going to be eating or drinking all of the things. Like there is some sense of being more aware of some of your health stuff or your work or your routines that you kind of have to stick to. But obviously, Jupiter is the ruler. It's conjunct Mercury in the 6th house. So that's really going to be kind of bringing up for you inspirational work. It can also mean that there can be some upgrades going on with your health. So you might be joining new health clubs, or maybe you're going to like a new fitness center. Maybe you're going to be, going and joining like a sports league, or you're going to be working out with friends, or you've got a friend that says, hey, come and join my day spa with me, do something like this. That can improve your emotional and your physical health. And it can involve water especially. So like swimming or anything connecting to saunas or massage can actually be really good during this particular full moon. Anyway, working with friends, team efforts, groups of people who you're connecting and collaborating with is also very positive. I just feel like the grand mutable cross that's coming up is really pushing you to align yourself with groups that share your same vision. So it's like, whether it's professionally or socially, it's wanting to be with people who are going to be more active, daring, and bold. Maybe you're seeking, new communities online of people who are wanting to cook their own food or grow their own food, or maybe they're wanting to, eat a more kind of like natural, organic lifestyle, right? Jupiter can be about what we grow. Maybe you're seeking other, families that are going to be doing some homeschooling or home education. That could be another interpretation that I have for this as well. So go and find your tribe, your people. Keep in mind that both Jupiter and Mercury will square Saturn, your traditional ruler, in Aries in your third house. So it does seem to kind of bring up like sometimes communication blockages, challenges, delays, scheduling issues, mobility issues also comes up a lot with Saturn and Neptune square Jupiter. So those of you guys who have been like healing from an injury or you're doing some rehabilitation or something, take it slow, right? Try to do some water resistance or anything that's going to be water related, stay hydrated. That can be really beneficial as well. And I predict for you guys that a new friendship or a group project I think is going to spark from this full moon. And I would just really recommend network, because if you're networking or collaborating, you're going to get a lot of traction and people are going to see what you're working on or what your interests are and also what you're creating. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see what's going to be coming up for my Aquarius and Aquarius risings for the Sagittarius full moon in their 11th house. Card that I get is the Three of Swords. Ouch. I have to be honest with you guys. I respectfully disagree with a lot of the cards that are coming up. I pull them in real time, and I'm not going to pull another card and make it seem good. But I don't really agree with a lot of the cards that have been coming up. So you guys are going to have to really give me feedback and let me know. But obviously, okay, full moon in the 11th house, right? Three of Swords is like, a situation that happens with a friend that it makes you sad. And that could mean that, there's some heartbreak revolving around a friendship, a separation, some sadness, some grief, sorrow, you're upset, loss, or there's some kind of tears of some kind that are kind of coming up. So how could that connect and correlate with the Sagittarius moon in the 11th house, which can actually be very positive? Well, the 11th house is other people. And I'm looking at Jupiter, the ruler, 8 signs away from that full moon. And that can mean that you have a friend that's going through some critical turning point with their home or their family. They might call you and say, oh my God, my mom just got diagnosed with breast cancer, or my sister just lost her house, or, I'm just dealing with this situation where my family member is sick and I don't know what to do. Things are just like falling apart. And it's challenging you because it's in a square to Saturn and Neptune, which if one of them is your chart ruler. So it's like you going, how can I counsel them? How can I communicate with them? I'm asking them, what do they need? How can I help you? Right? And maybe it's just difficult to kind of have some of these conversations with them because they're going through it. Could a full moon in the 11th house mean a friendship breakup? Yes, it could. Especially if you're feeling the Mars square Uranus, where you've got a partner that says, I just don't like that friend of yours, or we don't get along well, or I don't want you hanging out with them, or, they don't like me, I don't like them. That kind of stuff could happen. But yeah, you guys will have to kind of let me know. I had to really put on my thinking cap for this one. But I think I spoke about that in the horoscopes, where I was like, yeah, some of you guys may have a friend going through something. Anyway, obviously, give me feedback. Let me know. Hopefully it's not a Three of Swords scenario, and then it's just like an awesome party. Good luck. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys are going to be doing the full moon in Sagittarius in your natal 10th house of career, reputation, your professional life, and very visible in the 10th house, Pisces. Obviously, it's in a fellow mutable sign, so you're really feeling the grand mutable cross, especially as it squares your north node in the first house, south node in the 7th. Could bring up some really significant turning points where you're kind of in the spotlight, and the dynamic that impacts relationship changes, and also leaning into your destiny, your purpose, you becoming like the main center of attention. Really, really beautiful, I think, full moon for you guys. I think it's going to be like really highlighting for you, calling to embrace your purpose. That's what it is. And maybe putting yourself first, maybe feeling like it's not so much about other people or maybe even family right now. It's more about what's going on with your career and your paths. Obviously, it's going to oppose the sun in your 4th house. So you're feeling the dynamic of who am I out in the world versus who am I kind of privately, and what's changing with me emotionally and at home versus what's changing out in the world, and the impact they have on each other. Jupiter rules your chart. It also rules this full moon. So not only is Jupiter tied to your career, but it's also tied to your body. So it could be about you making some big announcement about a personal change. Well, what is the change? Well, Mercury and Jupiter are in your 5th house. So a lot of you guys are going to go, surprise, I'm launching my own business, or, oh my God, look at this, amazing thing that my kid did, or, oh, I'm going to be a mom, or I'm going to be a dad, because Jupiter is moving through the 5th house of children. On the other hand, this could mean that you're crafting more, you're creating more, you're painting, you're doing something home-related, like home design, home decor, staging, sewing, cooking, hobbies that are connected to that you might be wanting to share with people. If you're wanting to publish like a children's book, this would be a good transit for that. Or maybe you're involved in teaching, younger people. If you got a teaching gig, that could be coming up. It's also conjunct Mercury, which is cool because this is really good for being like, oh my God, guys, look at my new boyfriend or girlfriend, or I'm in love or something like that. So it could be really good for some of you guys meeting someone at work and maybe falling in love. I mean, you go to work and then after work, you go out, you have dinner, you go to the bar, fifth house, and then you end up meeting someone. Great for creative collaborations professionally. So if you're an artist or a performer, this is wonderful for being able to put your work out there and collaborating with like-minded people. I think that it's really just boosting creativity and optimism across the board. Obviously, it's going to come with some of its challenges, like the fact that, Jupiter is going to be in a square with not only Saturn, but also Neptune, your other ruler, in the second house of Aries. So you're getting serious about what you want to build, what you want to create, how you want to make money, how you value yourself, your self-esteem. You're really investing in yourself and you're having to believe in your vision. And there's a lot of you either feeling like there's a lot of potential on the line or maybe some kind of pressure to produce something. And I don't know if it's money. I don't know if it's children. I don't know if it's just going to be happiness and joy in general. But I think with Saturn in the second house and Neptune in the second house, it's about getting clear with what your values are and where you're going to be investing your time or your money or your energy, and maybe scaling back on certain things if you feel like you want to make more time for the things that you love, hobbies, people, children, projects, and that there is some need maybe to tighten the purse strings a little bit or hold back or not spend too much, but willing to make certain sacrifices so that way you can see some of these things fully into their fruition. So I'm predicting for this full moon, for many of you, a career milestone is definitely kind of coming to the forefront, and a creative project could very well shine. I'm also predicting that some of you guys will be showcasing your talents boldly. Think album drops, record releases, music videos, but also creative, home kind of businesses and projects. Some of you guys are also going to be finding out that you're going to be parents. You're going to be making some of those announcements because there's good news involving children with Mercury and Jupiter in the fifth house. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see, what can we tell our Pisces and Pisces risings about this full moon in the 10th house of career? Oops, what is that? Okay, that's the card we're going to go with. We got the Queen of Cups. Very good for you guys, especially being Pisces. Obviously, Queen of Cups is that emotional kind of like maturity, right? And this is about compassion, warmth, kindness, intuition, healing, counseling, and support, getting a lot of support and a lot of love, I think, for what you've been working on and what you've been creating. In a business sense, because it is in your 10th house, it says this is about counseling, healing, professionals, creative pursuits. It's bang on in that regard. And I think that this can really be talking about that you're focusing on only working on or only creating or producing things that you love. So it can also feel like it's been a labor of love getting, something rolling, and now finally you're able to make an announcement, or finally it's able to kind of get to be seen. So you guys are gonna have to let me know what the big thing is. If you're getting a new job, if you get a promotion, if you're given more kind of creative freedom at work, or maybe you're gonna be launching your own thing. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Pisces. All right, guys. Well, obviously that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm so excited to see what this full moon in Sagittarius brings all of us. I feel like it is a cosmic wake-up call to wake up and live boldly, speak our truth, as well as chase our wildest dreams. With all these mutable crosses that are kind of pushing and pulling us, just remember that Mercury conjunct Jupiter can definitely bring heartfelt expression, good communication, and lots of good luck. I'd love to hear how you guys are celebrating this particular full moon in Sag. Share your rituals or your insights, or how some of these things manifest, especially with some of the weirdness that came up with the tarot today. So I want to hear. And if you guys like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment and subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow. Consider sharing on your socials with other people who like astrology. And while you're there, follow me at BTV Astro on X. You guys can keep up with me there and see what I'm doing. And until next time, keep exploring, keep shining, and enjoy this full moon in Sagittarius. Take care.